There we go. I think that we should be good to go. If I don't have my webcam actually up, there might be a little glitch there, a little error on my end right there. So if it's not popping up, which it may not be the case, then we may just do without webcam, but that's all right. As long as you could see my screen, then we're going to be good to go. So without further ado, my apologies with that, but the KPRX obviously ended up making a really good squeeze up from the morning here. It was one from yesterday that we ended up having our eyes on. If you folks recall, this ended up coming out with phase 2 news yesterday morning. And in terms of any sort of pharma news, phase 2 is still pretty significant. So you don't want to just throw a dart on the wall and hope it lands. Obviously, looking what happened yesterday, ended up popping and dropping. So, that's where you say you don't want to buy the news fully. But hey, there's a reason it came out with news. There's a reason it had an initial reaction after. So there's a chance, right? And this one ended up running up from the morning off of lower volume. It ended up beginning to gain a lot of steam heading into the late morning, right around noontime, running up towards 7. And then, as you could see, it looks pretty simple to say, but, just trended up higher, ended up running up towards the resistance off of that 7 level again. Popped it pretty nicely. So, yeah, for right now, this still looks in play, even though it is making a hell of a shake back down. So be careful now, but KPRX will look to find support on this trade going into the close. Again, this is more of a dud from yesterday coming off of news. So, hey, better now than ever, right? So KPRX definitely a great one to follow. We've had our eyes on Uber today, and you could see my chart all lined up for right now. Give me a quick moment. Data running a little slow on my platform, so hopefully no internet crashing coming up here from my end. But Uber ended up dropping off at the open. I'm gonna try and disregard all of the wacky lines in my chart here, folks. But Uber coming off of good earnings. They ended up beating the EPS estimates, ended up beating sales. There was some other news on top year over year in terms of growth. Complete drop off this morning. Totally faked me out. I was looking for support initially off of 36, ended up taking a small loss from there, ended up going down to 35. Well, at that point, not only was 35, so to say, a whole number level, historical level to watch normally, but the closing bell price from yesterday, the closing print, 34.90. From that point, it generated a hell of a retracement back up, a hell of a squeeze back up here. So this was my bread and butter across the day. It fooled me at first, but I'm happy to say we ended up doing really well on this trade right off that 34.90 level. Ran it up over 36. I got out at 36.15 initially. I jumped back in from 36.26. I got out in full though on this trade before the meeting started. I forgot my exit price. May have even been a little under where this is trading right now by a few pennies, but either way, I'm flat on Uber right now. I definitely am interested in this trade though going into the close. Now, if the markets end up plunging lower, if we end up getting a break, a big support on the SPY off of 410, it's going to be a lot harder for Uber to swim upstream in that sense. But I'll tell you though, in relation to the SPY chart though, it's been really strong into this afternoon. So I'm definitely going to at least put this on our watch list, regardless. I'm not as keen to follow it as a short. That's where it fooled me from the morning. It's easy to say this could have been a really good gap fill early today. And if that was your MO right out the gate, well, it's easy to say, but it paid off. But coming off of good earnings, that wasn't necessarily my MO. So I didn't short this from the morning. If it ends up holding here now and fails to break over 37 and trend line there, or if it makes a false breakout, comes back down, then that could be a potential short opportunity, right? There was one today, and before we go, from the top of the gainers list here, I want to talk about a trade I am in right now, AI. And this was actually a really good short opportunity from this morning. One of our members, Jeff, was mentioning the over and under on AI. It popped out the gate this morning, made a really strong run up. So predominantly, that's where we were focused on it from the morning. But right around 10:15, 10:30, give or take, it broke above 28. It fell to run higher off the 28. It broke under 28. This led to a really good short trade right from that level. Easy to say, but that's exactly what we preach in terms of timing of the day, in terms of looking for a head fake, looking for a lack of buying momentum, at least on the way up. But at this point now, it bottomed out. It's funny because a couple of these AI trades that were moving pretty similarly a week ago, now they're not really moving as much in tandem, but the whole sector is still pretty strong. AI, You have the SOUN trade, which looks the best right now. And really, we were focused on this trade right off the 380 level that we had, historically. We were talking about that 24 hours ago here in this meeting, right? So I was trading this from the morning. I'm not in this now. I wish I could say I was. I took some money earlier from the Fausto flag from 4, got out at 4:15 as it shook down. That's all right. Good trade, but held support at 4. And when a couple of us were focused on that trade, that's where I was telling you, well, you know what? If this AI stocks bounce, you know what? I may not be as interested in SOUM, but maybe I could see if I can get my hands on some small shares on the AI. And that was perfect timing right off the previous low of the day right here, roughly over 25.35. Ended up making a beautiful bounce from that point. So this is the trade I am currently in. And AI, I'll put on our list the SOUN trade. I'm going to put at the top of our list right now. That looks to be the best right now, right? Pushing on the way up towards an iceberg order, roughly off of 440 for about 17,000 shares. Now the BBAI, this is where it threw me off this morning because this was actually up the most out of all of these different AI trades. Big Bear AI, we did well in this trade last week as well. But, this one really, I mean, it made a weaker move compared to the other two, at least so far this afternoon. I mean, it's starting to make a small bounce now, but the others, I think, just look a lot better so far. So I'll put this on our side list. I'll come back to this by the end. If we have a really big list, then maybe won't be as keen to follow it. All right. So those were like really kind of the highlights across the morning. Now we had the CELZ from pre-market, but I guess we'll start from the top now and really work our way through. So again, from pre-market, this thing just took off like a missile. And in pre-market trading, extended hours trading altogether, there's no volatility halts, no circuit breaker volatility halts. Now there's news halts and exchange halts and all that, but just to say in pre-market, the more this runs up, it's not as if it's going to get halted from volatility. So the more it runs up, you begin to wonder, like, when is it going to begin to pull back? So I did not focus on this as much from 8 o'clock. I wish I could say I jumped in right off $1. Seemingly that led to a phenomenal trade up, a hell of a move up towards 140, and then from that point failed. Looks like it ended up making more of a second win type of move heading into the late morning there as it peaked back up towards resistance, but obviously failed. I didn't really focus on that trade at the time, so I guess I'm catching that there initially here for the first time right now. All right, so we'll move on from this trade here. Let's just see what else we got. Anything else that moved from the morning? We'll recap pretty briefly, and I'll be extremely transparent with you folks. I really didn't notice this AVRO myself until right now. If I check in the chat board, I'm sure that Rich had called this out earlier off the halt. Check. All right, yeah, it's right there. It's right. All right, so Rich posted that right inside the live trading room earlier, just right going into 1 o'clock, shortly after 12:45. So led to a nice pop up after. For right now, it's still holding well. It's still kind of strong in relation to this trend here. Higher lows for right now. You just got a bunch of volume on the ask for this thing to try and break over. Even if it breaks above the 22K at 170, you got a brick of different orders that are out there at 73, 74, 78, etc. That's the only concerning part, but I'll add it. AVRO. That Uber trade's already on the way up towards 37. So again, we don't need to build up too big of a list. One of my students earlier had mentioned, hey, I'm kind of just focused on the less expensive stocks. Don't force anything out there. Just because it was on the pre-market list early today, that doesn't mean it's moving now. So, of course, we have a couple cheapies already here, like the SOUN trade, and obviously now AVRO. But if these fail to make the bigger moves that we're looking for them to make, I just trade smaller shares of a more expensive stock. Everyone has their own personal threshold with, how expensive of a stock we all trade. Obviously, I don't like to trade too much of an expensive stock, like $50 or more normally, but for Uber, a $37 stock, you lower the share count, it makes for a pretty simple trade because it just has pretty recognizable levels. All right. Let's hope AVRO can make just at least a pretty efficient move up right now. All right. KPRX, already one that's on our list, like we talked about already. So that as well. Now we're kind of in cheapy land here. We got the stocks below $1. You got this one here, TCAT at 102. I'm honestly going to skip over them. If they're looking really good, I guess you let me know. But I mean, again, we don't need to build up too big of a list. SOUN, the AI trades all together. This thing was a complete mess today. MSGM, gamble stock. I have no business with this trade. FTNT, a little expensive. I'm sure it's tradable. Actually, pretty good spread right now and good liquidity on the order book given the price. But in terms of like bang for your buck, there's just better opportunity. That's all. All right, let's just show that Uber trade right now because, like we just talked about, bang for your buck. Here we go. Right, not only at 37, but a major trend line test off the pre-market highs here for the most part. So, I would expect a false breakout at first, and then we'll see what happens. If we could blast 37 here cleanly, then maybe look for the trend line to eventually become support over time. But the markets are also beginning to pull back a little bit here. If I zoom in on the 5-minute chart, you could just see the SPY begin to drag down a little bit more right there towards the lows. That's where I'm telling you, it's going to be a little tough for a name brand company like Uber to swim upstream, if the markets end up plunging a lot more. All right, so in terms of cheapies here, this thing is actually down 63%. Maybe it's possible for this to try and get up to 50 by end of day, but right now I don't really have a great need to add this just yet. CPRI, nice drop off from the morning. Nice drop off heading into the mid-afternoon, actually, and a bit of a dead cat bounce just recently. If it was trending closer to the lows, I'd actually be a lot more interested in it. It's not down a whole lot percentage-wise for me to expect a dead cat bounce definitively. If it was down as much as TMDI is, maybe a different story. All right, what else do we have here? Markets are down, so there could be a couple name brands otherwise down big. That's right. Under Armour, relatively name brand companies, right? UAA coming off of bad earnings today. I saw them. It was more mid-afternoon, like maybe a couple hours back, and I was late to the draw, I felt like. But where were they? They'll just happen there. There we go. UA and UAA, both off of earnings. They're the same company, just two separate tickers there. So I'll add them both. You don't need to trade both of them. Just pick one, really. Both have great liquidity. Both are around the same price. If they were differently priced or whatnot, I'd say otherwise. But honestly, both are pretty much around the same price. Both have pretty similar liquidity. Maybe this one's a little bit more liquid. So, that's my stance on it, really. They both look good. There we go, Steve, my man, gold student here at CTU. You got in from 763 on KPRX, just got out right now under 8. Excellent trade from Steve. Beautiful. All right, folks. So, hey, let me know if there's anything else up, down, left, right, more than that 5% that you'd want me to look at or check out for all of us on social media, Facebook Live, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Hey, be on the lookout coming up at 3 o'clock. I'm actually going to be back on just for a small stream taking you into the close. But otherwise, though, just we'll see what else is out there here before we wrap up. Hopefully my webcam is working by 3 o'clock. I don't know why my webcam wasn't working for this one. I intended on popping it up. AUTL right now I'm catching from my Benzinga Pro scan here. It looks really good. It's up over 12%. It's only trading about 2 million shares total on the day. It's a little bit more actually compared to what it normally trades, but unless it has a super low float, I'm sure there could be a little bit more gas left in the tank for this. I don't mind adding this right now. AUTL was up 12% right now. Let me try it on my separate monitor here to check the float and all that stuff here for this AUTL. What do we got? We got an 8.8 million share float. All right, that's not. This thing definitely could have some more room left to it. That's good. All right, so folks, for all of us on social media, if you wanted to get the full service of our audio commentary in our live trading room, go right down to the link on the green banner below the stream, right there to get yourself started. Any questions before joining us? I always like to post my email here, and I'll also post it coming up at the end of our next stream at 3 p.m. But that'll be at Josh at ctutrading.com. For some reason, it's not even letting me post my email right now. How about that? So, how about this? I'll catch everybody back on YouTube at least later on today at 3 p.m. for a small stream, just closing bell right there. But for Steve, Mike, Leda, Brian, Jeff, Lawrence, and all of us there right now, just I know that Rich will be on the mic coming up for you folks going into the close. I'll jump in as well briefly, but we'll see if there's anything else out there taking us going into the end of the day. All right. I guess the last one here, if anything, BBAI. I said I'd come back to that one, right? It looks like the SOUN trade's holding well, but the AI is pulling back a little bit, so I'm losing a little profit on the position I'm in from right now. So I got to watch out on that. I'm not too thrilled about the BBAI right now. If the AI stocks do bounce, SOUN looks the best. But if anything, maybe the AI, if anything otherwise. At the horn, at the buzzer, Andre, a little buzzer beater right here, Carvana. Unless if you could short it, my friends, I would not be too thrilled about trying to jump in long. If you could short it, then that could be a decent side list stock, just solely looking at the trend, looking at the drop off right there. All right, first rule of buying a stock, folks, you got to make sure you're buying a stock after it breaks through a big level on the way up. So that's why we want to focus on stocks that are near the highs of the day, at least at this point. So even my AI is in danger. That's more speculative. The SOUN looks good. KPRX looks good. Hell, Uber looks incredible right now. There's definitely some good long trades that we could try and follow going into the afternoon. All right. So I'm going to post the list right now, folks. And again, I'll be back on coming up in just a bit. Talk to you soon.